Hello, everybody. Nice to see you all. Hi, Gems. Are you there? Gem. We'd get going as soon as Gem's here. Hi, Sasol. All right, Gem seems to be having problems. Let's see. Gem, you there?
Hi.
Oh, yay.
They like Gem Crypto today. Not Gem Says. God knows what goes on every week. But hello, everybody. Welcome. So you can hear us, yes?
Yeah, I can hear you, darling. All good. You're on. How are you doing?
Excellent. Yeah, I'm doing really good. How are you?
Yeah, really good. Thank you. Really good. Looking forward to tonight's spaces. Oh, hi, Sly. Hi, Cecile. Hi, Metals. Jake. I can't say hi to everybody, but hello. Thank you for joining us. It's
Yeah,
quite an
loads of
interesting
people.
topic. Yeah, what an interesting topic we have tonight, because it's something we all face is life's challenges for sure. So it'd be quite a nice one to get into and to get some feedback and get some questions as well. I know Gem's got some, so we'll see how it goes. And yeah, I just think it's something that relates to everybody. So yeah, what do you think about tonight's topic, Gem?
I think, well, everything in life, if it's not a challenge, then it's what's really going on. I used to see challenges as challenges or problems. Now I kind of see it as an adventure, an experience. And because I've learned to understand that everything is given to you rather than sort of thrown at you and victim mentality, this has really helped me understand.
Yeah.
So yeah, the three principles, they really work with every single different subject, and we've had some amazing questions already. If anyone has anything else that you want to speak about, then just message and we'll take some requests later. But yeah, there's lots of different things going on in the world at the moment, and some people deal with things in one way and other people deal with it in another. So we've all got the ability to deal with things rationally. And I think tonight will be a great conversation about how you can put that into sort of every different part of your life. So that's how I think tonight's going to go. What about you?
Yeah, I just think it's again, it covers everybody. Everybody has challenging situations. You know, everybody faces things in life that they may not want to face, that they don't think should happen to them, that they find that contain some suffering for them. So I think to look at this topic, we can really help a lot of people by looking at in this way, with the three principles, which is what I teach. I've been teaching it for 8 years. At some point last year, Gem and I decided that it would be really great to share what we've seen with the world. And we've both got, Gem's got a bigger platform than me, but we've both got, quite decent platform to share it with over on Twitter. And it's just about, giving something back. So for us, we've both been helped by this understanding. I began teaching it around 8 years ago. Gem came into it a couple of years ago, was quite resistant at first, but eventually started to listen, and I know it's changed her life dramatically. And when you see those changes, when you understand that you have something that can really make positive impact in people's lives, and especially, as Jem said, with what's going on in the world, it's something that you really want to get out there, and something that you really want people to see and to understand, because everybody's living very much from a place of where they really can be a victim of the world. It's like the world is doing things to them. The world is creating their feelings. The world is challenging. The world has a lot in it that they resist, and it can make people really unhappy because they're not accepting life as it is. And I think there's something in acceptance, which doesn't mean to say that we accept it, and, you know, we accept suffering. It's a deeper acceptance where we see something that's true about the human experience, which is what we're teaching here. And when we see that truth of the human experience and the fact that it comes from us, that we are experiencing our own reality, that when we begin to see that and open up to that, that life gets better. So this is why we're here. This is what we're doing. We want everybody's lives to be better. We want more happiness. We want more love. We want more peace of mind. So tonight's topic about life's challenges is, you know, really to start with, what is a challenging situation? So what we have to see is that a challenging situation is different to every person. Okay, so what one of you may find challenging, another won't. So a challenging situation is something that comes from us, because what we're doing is we're saying, okay, that situation is something that for some reason, through my thought system, through my belief system, I find difficult. And we're all going to have that in different areas, and that's totally fine. We're not saying we shouldn't feel like that. Of course, we're having the human experience. But where we go a bit deeper with this understanding is we start to see that our experiences, whether they're challenging or not, are always experienced through us, through our thought system, through our minds. Okay, so instead of this outside-in reality, we go to an inside-out reality. And some of you would have been on other calls with me and Gem, and you would already have an understanding of this. And for others that haven't, you know, just stick with it, because at first it can sound a bit unusual, but, you know, it is really true. And as you begin to explore it, you'll see it's true for yourself. So what we begin to see is that we are constantly in the experience of thought, okay? So 100,000 thoughts a day, that's what we have. So we're always experiencing life via our minds, via our thought system, via what's being created within us, okay? But what we do is we apply that to the world, and we believe it's the world creating it, okay? So this is where we start to come more to this inside-out understanding, that the world and our experience is actually coming from us, because we are always applying our own beliefs to the world, okay? So something that we feel shouldn't happen and we resist, as in a challenging situation, that is us, because we're saying it shouldn't be this way. The world can actually only be as it is, okay? And when we really look back on life, we see that what really has formed us have been our challenging situations, where we have grown, where we have changed, where we have evolved as a human being has come from these challenges. So what we may resist in the moment can often turn out to be something that really creates a deeper sense of who we are, really begins us on the journey of inquiry into what being human is, what life is about. Okay, so again, we all have challenges, and if you think about it, a lot of the things that we find challenging are the areas where we experience change that we do not want. Okay, so these changes come in, we feel like that we don't want that change. That isn't a change that should be happening to me. This is something I didn't want to happen, and that resistance is where suffering comes in. And again, I'm not saying we shouldn't have resistance and we're not going to suffer. Of course, we're always going to come up against life. But what I've seen through teaching this and through my own experiences, and I know I've said this before on other calls, is that as far as I can tell, life is absolutely meant to be challenging. If we say 50% of the time, and the other 50% of the time it's supposed to be amazing and beautiful and awe-inspiring and wonderful, you know, those percentages can shift a bit. But if we just look at it from through how we have experienced the world so far, it's had its ups, it's had its downs. Now, what we've been stuck on really in many ways is believing that life is always supposed to be wonderful. Now, if you think you have that belief, then when a challenge comes and we resist it, we're also resisting it with the idea that we're always supposed to be happy and life's always supposed to be great and it's always supposed to be good times. And we really deeply know actually that is not true. We know that's not true because we know our experience, and we know everybody around us has the same experience of a challenging time. So challenging situations, it is a bit like it's the fires that we're forged in are these challenging situations. So it's beginning to kind of see that a little bit deeper, a little bit more understanding into the human experience. What the principles are that we teach, it's trying to explain the fundamental, essential nature of the human experience. And that is that we are always experiencing thought, okay? And I know I go over this a lot, but it's such an important point to see and to really help with mental health and with stress and with anything that you've got going on, is that what we have this thought system that creates our world, and we apply it to the world. And then what we have to go with that is a feeling, okay? So thought and feeling are two sides of the same coin. When you have a thought in your head, you have a corresponding feeling. Now, where we've been lost, where we've been seeing it in the wrong way, is that we've been believing that feeling has been attached to the world. So we have an experience, we get a feeling of sadness or anxiety or fear. And what we do is we look to the world and we believe it's coming from there, when ultimately that feeling is coming from us. It can't come from the world. That actually the whole world and everything in it is completely neutral. What we're doing is we're always applying meaning to it. And we've been lost in that because we've so deeply believed that our feelings are attached and coming from the world. So it's that person causing my feelings. It's that event causing my feelings. It's my bank balance causing my feelings. It's that bad trade that's causing my feelings. And it is never, ever any of those things, okay? And of course it's going to have the appearance of that. But when you explore this deeper understanding that ultimately those feelings are coming from your thought system in the moment, because of what you're thinking in the moment, that is what you are feeling in the moment. That includes the past, that includes the future. So if you have a past event and you're thinking about that past event, and then your feelings are really matching it, so that was a really traumatic past event. So when you think about it, you have feelings of anxiety and fear, then that isn't coming from the past, because the past doesn't exist in that moment. The only thing that exists in that moment is you having that experience. And that experience is coming from thought. So can you see how this can be so helpful in challenging situations, not only as they're happening now? Now, I know I've worked with people with PTSD, and how this is incredibly helpful for them is that the challenging situations of the past also begin to dissolve because they're seen as thought rather than the reality. Because, all of us are only in one reality right now, and that is on this call. Nothing else is true other than this right now. That is the only thing that we are experiencing. Now, your mind can create a million other things to experience, but ultimately the truth of your experience is here now, listening and having the experience of you being on unminding. So again, it's so interesting to begin to unpack what the principles are pointing to. There's a beautiful quote. It's probably one of my favourite quotes in the principles. And it's, all we are is peace, love and wisdom, and the power to create the illusion that we are not. Okay, so that's what the mind does. That's what thought does. It's creating the illusion of something other. Now, again, we don't want to take away the fact that we are experiencing life, that life can be tough, that we're going to have feelings, that we're going to experience grief, we're going to experience pain, we're going to experience fear. Of course we are. This understanding doesn't take that away. It just gives us a different perspective of it. It gets us to see it in a different way. Okay, so what we begin to do is, I can be lost, and I know with Gem, because we get on calls together, is Gem can be lost, or there can be something going on where it looks really, really real and it feels like I'm actually affected by that thing outside of me. But as soon as I have the insight that what's actually affecting me is thought, that completely changes. I work with people privately, and I get people come on calls, and they can be so caught up and so lost, and their experience appears so incredibly real. And within often minutes of speaking, if not by the end of the hour, they are back. They are back in peace. They are back in presence. Okay. This includes people I deal with that have maybe lost a partner. We're talking really big things. Not always just some little thing that's happened to them. It's the spectrum of challenges is huge. And when I work with someone and they go, "Oh, this seems like a really silly thing to be bothered about," and it's like, well, if you've got a stone in your shoe, it doesn't matter if that stone is big or small, it's going to irritate you. So what is a problem to you, it's okay for it to be a problem to you. But what we're not going to do is get stuck into it as a problem. I'm going to bring you out of it. I'm going to show you a different perspective. I'm going to show you that it's coming from you. And then at some point you will drop out of the ego, you'll drop out of the mind, you'll drop out of the intellect, and you'll see something different, you'll see something deeper, and presence will be there. And as soon as that happens, you'll be back to being at peace. It's quite amazing. It still amazes me, and I teach it and I see it every day. But it's such an amazing understanding. And the other thing that is really true, that everything is exactly as it is meant to be. Okay? We often don't want things to happen how they happen, but that is how it is. So again, not having the resistance to life as it is, accepting life as it is, knowing that, yeah, this may be painful for me. This situation may not be what I would have chosen, but ultimately I know it cannot be any other way. Okay, that puts us actually in a position of power. We see, with everything that I'm teaching you here, we come out a victim. We're not a victim to the world. We're not a victim to another person. We're not a victim to an event. We come out of that. Of course, in a moment we can be, of course we can be a victim to certain things in the moment. But once that's happened, once we come out of that, we're only a victim of our own minds. Okay, so this puts us in a real position of seeing things differently. Because ultimately, I guess for me, what really happened when I began to see this was that my relationship with my thinking changed. I really began to see that so much of my thinking was made up, and where I took all my thinking so seriously, I began to see that thought is imagination. Thought isn't truth. Now, seeing that creates such room for freedom of mind. It creates such psychological well-being. Because if you think, a lot of our psychological distress, a lot of the fact that we get caught up in our mind is because we're believing thought. We're believing that our thinking is telling us the truth. And we believe that we are creating that thought, that thought says something about us. And in this understanding, we're seeing that thought comes and goes. I always say to clients, and I'm pretty sure I've said on these calls before, is that if you chose thought, do you not think you'd be choosing amazing, happy thinking 100% of the time? And people are like, oh, yeah, I guess I would. So it's like, so how can you be choosing thought? Thought comes and thought goes. It's like we're like a receiver. And thought is like an energy that we receive, and it passes through. And when we begin to see that, and we see the impersonal nature even of our own thinking, and I know this can be hard to see at first, but your own thought is impersonal. Okay? Your own thought is coming and going. The only thinking that is personal is the thoughts that you say are personal. It's the thinking that you really believe to be true. Okay, because what you will also have is thinking that you know is impersonal, because it will come and you'll go, well, that's a load of rubbish. I'm not taking any notice of that. And there's other thoughts that come that you really believe, that you really grab hold of, that really feel real, that really make you feel something. And if that feeling that you're getting from that thinking is negative, and you're believing that you've created that thought and it says something about you, then to me, that's the path to mental illness. That's the road where we go down, where we begin to get heavier and heavier because we have more and more thinking, more and more layers of thought that is unhelpful, that we believe is true, that isn't helpful in any way. So we begin to have a different relationship with thought. So once that happens, a challenging situation appears different, because we have a space where we can step back and we can see our own thinking. We're not a victim of our own thinking. We're not believing thought in the same way that we used to. We're seeing that thought is imagination. It isn't truth. That's such an important point. When we're looking at challenges, it's like, what's going on for us? What is our mind telling us? Is that really true? Often we'll go, actually, no, that isn't true, and it's not helpful. My mind isn't helping me in this moment. The best option I have right now is to step back and observe my mind and observe thought and see really what's going on. Because I can really tell you, and again, I know this to be so true for myself and for the people that I work with and for people that my colleagues work with, is that we have innate well-being and we have a resilience that cannot be touched by life. Our true resilience, our true nature is untouched by anything that happens in life. Okay? Now, when we begin to see through this illusion of thought, when we begin to explore this understanding, and we kind of live in a new world when we begin to explore it, as we do that, we begin to see that this resilience is always there. So the analogy that I always love to use is that, there's a screen and you put a movie on the screen, and that movie can have, war, destruction. It can have so much going on in that movie, and you'll watch the movie and be really caught up, and there's a lot of harm in the movie. There can be violence. There can be all sorts of things in the movie. Now, who you think you are is the movie. Who we have believed we are up to now is the movie that's thrown about by life, that has all these experiences, that is damaged by them. But who you really are is the screen that the movie is played on. As soon as the movie is finished, the screen is blank, it's untouched, it's unharmed. There's not a scratch on it. So who we really, really, truly are is the screen. We're not the movie. We're not the story. But we think we're the story. Okay, so understanding this, stepping back and seeing that ultimately, when we see we're not the story, that we're the screen, that's the resilience that I'm talking about. That's what's woken up within us. That's where we realise we have everything that we need already within us to deal with whatever is going on with life. And what we don't have, what we really don't have is because thought gets so carried away, is the resilience to deal with our minds. It's because that's a fake resilience. That's a resilience that comes from the mind. So we can't cure thought with thought. There's something deeper, and this is what this is pointing to. We don't have to cope. We have to see the true nature of who we are. And this exploration is something that allows us to see that. There's a Thoreau quote, it's not what you look at, it's what you see. That's such a beautiful, simple quote. It's not what you look at, it's what you see. Wow, okay, this is pointing to what we're teaching here. Because whatever the experience is, it's your view of it. What are you seeing? That's why there can be an experience, and there can be several people have the same experience, but everybody will have a different version of it, or a different feeling around it. It's not set. The world isn't set. Our feelings aren't set. They come and they go. So another example I always love to use is your life. Your life probably pretty much stays the same most of the time. But on some days you can wake up and think you've got a great life, and other days wake up and think it's crap, and your life probably hasn't changed that much. What has changed is your mind. Your state of mind has changed. So beginning to see that that's what we're always up against makes life easier, because it's not the world, which ultimately we can't do that much about. If it's us, there is something we can do. We know that we can go deeper and see it a bit more. We can see it in a different way. We can experience life in a different way. And I know, again, for people that are new, this might be hard to understand, but the totality of this teaching is that because we're going so deep into the human experience, it will touch every area of your life. So I can have someone come to me about their relationship and they'll notice changes also at work, or vice versa, because what these 3 principles are an explanation of our experience. They are, for me, pretty much as deep as we can go into understanding the energies behind life. Yeah, so the energy behind life are these 3 principles: the fact that we think, the fact that we're aware of thought, and the fact that there's a greater intelligence behind all of this. So this is what we point to. This is what we come back to. We're always coming home. We're always coming to a place of deeper intelligence, a place of presence, and a place of awareness. Because from there we can deal with anything. Now, yes, we're still going to get caught in the human experience, because I do. And I've been around it for nearly 10 years, been teaching it for 8. I know that Gem also does. She's been around it for a couple of years, because we're not out here curing being human. We are all up against the same thing, which is the human condition. But we now have somewhere else to go. We have something deeper to see, okay? And when we see this, when we begin to, rather than having to manage the world and cope with situations and have strategies, suddenly all we have to do is see something deeper about who we are. And that, I can assure you, allows us to thrive in all situations. Okay, so we go from an understanding or a thinking of we have to cope to an understanding and thinking that, what if I can thrive in this? What if this challenge has been sent to me to make me understand life more, to make me grow, to make me challenge myself? Because ultimately, the suffering that we experience is often the gateway for us to explore who we really are. The suffering that we experience is often what allows us to, how do I explain this? It almost puts a crack in the ego, okay? So, and that crack in our ego is suddenly shines something where we're going, is there something more than this? Is there something more to me? Is there something more I need to see? And it doesn't always come from suffering, but a hell of a lot of the time it does. Okay, for me, it came from suffering. From Gem, it did. From a lot of people that I work with, there's a point of suffering that opens us up to a deeper experience of life. And as tough as that can be, there's that moment where we come out of it, that we see the pearl within it. I have a teacher that talks about his suffering, and he said, I see it as a gift. He said, it's not a gift I'd ever want to give anyone else, but it was a gift to me. And this is, how differently we can see life. So we go from this position of suffering and challenges and things we need to cope with and life being hard, to one of thriving, to one of having a deeper understanding of who we are, of one of growing from life. One of not in any way being a victim of life, just seeing that actually what this experience is allowing me to do is be reflective. It's allowing me to inquire and look within. Like, what am I feeling? Is it true? Can it be my guide? What am I believing about the world right now that is creating my feelings that isn't true? Okay, and that can be so many different things that look real to us. And again, we'll all have different areas. There's areas where we may feel inadequate or unsure of ourselves. That's all coming from thought. Who you think you are is thought too. That's really interesting. So when we're applying this understanding, at first it's really easy to apply because we look at the world and go, yeah, of course that's made of thought. Of course that thing that I thought contained my feelings or was going to give me a feeling can't. I'd actually made that up and applied that to it. Okay, now I'm going to go there. Right, so what's very, very interesting about us applying our feelings to the world and why it looks real, okay? So we get into this idea that something will make us happy, maybe a person, maybe a thing, a car, a house. I know some of the traders, a watch, whatever it may be. That's good. That's the next thing I need. That's going to contain my happiness. When I get that thing, then I will be fulfilled. That's when I've got it. That's when I've made it. And everybody knows that thing temporarily may give you the illusion of that feeling, but it will wear off and there'll be another thing and then another thing and then another thing. And what's actually happening is the system that we are, this thought-feeling system. So we have a thought, we have a feeling, that the mind will create an outside object to contain a feeling. But we will apply that feeling to the object. When we get the object, we might feel, oh, I'm happy now because I have the object. The happiness isn't coming from the object. The happiness is coming because you have temporarily stopped seeking happiness outside of yourself and you've allowed your innate happiness to come through. It's so clever and it's so interesting. And when you begin to see it, it's actually just fascinating. It's like, wow, okay. And that's why the feeling of the object always wears off, because at some point we begin to seek again. At some point we begin to look outside of ourselves for happiness again. Okay, well, I've got that thing now. What do I want next? Now, this understanding doesn't mean to say that we stop playing in the world and wanting things and having things, but it certainly takes the pressure off and the idea that a feeling comes from that thing. We just have it to play. We don't have it because we think it's going to make our life actually better or create a good feeling. Okay, so the beauty, if we go a bit deeper into what I've just pointed to, the real beauty in that is that then we can see that happiness, if it's not coming from an object, if it's not objective, if it's actually coming from us, it's available 100% of the time. Okay, it's not determined by a circumstance. It's not determined by a thing. So we don't have to wait for circumstances to be right for us to be happy. We begin to see that actually within me is happiness and love and peace and joy. And in the right moments, they will come through and I will feel them. And sometimes I will also feel sadness. And sometimes I will also feel anger. I will feel all the emotions. But we begin to see that ultimately everything comes from us. And the idea that we need to seek anything outside of ourselves for a feeling falls away. Again, greater freedom. We're always coming back to more freedom with this understanding. Freedom of mind, freedom from the world, freedom from the past. And ultimately, that's what we're all looking for. We all want to feel freer. We all want to feel happier. That's it. Now, with all the things that I'm saying tonight, can you see how easy it is to fall into mental illness and stress? How the world is almost set up for us to be looking in the wrong direction? That actually this reflective inquiry, this looking within, this understanding more deeply who we are, contains everything that we need. My thinking doesn't have that much credibility anymore. My personal thought, to me, a lot of the time, it's just noise. Now, it will, of course, I'm having the human experience. It will appear real. I will get caught up. But what happens for me is I bounce out of it pretty quickly. So it's not that I'm always zen and I'm always at peace and the world never affects me. Of course it does. But on those occasions when it does, at some point I have a realization and I come back very, very quickly. And I was speaking with Gem, I think last week, because she had the experience, and she came out of it, and she said, I'd been in this for days, if not weeks before, but now it was just a moment. It was just an afternoon. And I said, yeah, that's the beauty of this, because what we have tried to do in the past that hasn't worked is we've tried to outthink our way out of thought. God, that's futile. If you think that thought is causing the problem, and then we're adding more thought to try and cure the problem. So if you think of added thought, it's just going to create more feeling. So we get more lost. So again, it's this stepping back. It's being aware that we are aware. And that awareness, in that space, we can see our own thinking. And it's knowing that life is always going to be challenging. And the less we resist that, the easier it will be. Okay, so we're coming back to, again, what is our experience made of? Who are we? And can I see this differently? Is thought telling me the truth? And ultimately, I can guarantee a lot of the time it's not. I think I say this nearly every week now, but Eckhart Tolle, 98% of thought isn't helpful. If you think that's a lot of thinking that isn't helpful. But what happens with this is when we do get the helpful thinking, we are actually deeply aware of it because of the feeling that comes with it, of the fact that it's a great idea, but the noise that isn't helpful, we can dismiss it quite quickly. And again, back to a deeper understanding, back to freedom, back to the quote that I mentioned earlier, which is all we are is peace, love and wisdom, and the power to create the illusion that we are not. So the stripping away of thought is coming back to the truth. It's stripping away the illusion of what we are not, and we're coming back to what we really are. And what we really are, we will know when we touch that because of how we feel. We will feel peaceful. We will feel at one. We will feel at home. And we will know, we'll go, and the mind will be quiet. And there will be nothing that you can do to get there. You will just fall into it. This isn't a doing understanding. This is an exploration and a being. And when presence is there, when the moment is perfect for us to see it, we will see it. And the insights that you get from this understanding will stay with you for life. The things that I have seen through this understanding over the last 10 years have never left me. Every time I get an insight into how life really works, it stays. Because it's not an intellectual understanding of something that I have to remember. It's something deeper. It's a belief falling away. It's what's not true falling away. So I see what is true. And that experience is so deep that it's not something that gets brushed aside or forgotten. It becomes part of who you are. And more of who you are not just falls away. And, all I can say is that I feel really, God, I've been talking for ages again, sorry. All I can say is I feel so lucky that I get to share this. And that even if 10% of the people that come on the calls can hear something from this, I know that can be life-changing. And I know that actually we've been doing it for 4 or 5 months now, that so many people, there's certain people I know they've heard because they come every week and they hear something and they're always here and they stick with it and they reach out and they say, wow, I really heard something there. And I know for those people that those changes that are happening within them aren't impermanent, they're a permanent change. And yeah, I just feel really, really lucky to get to share this with you all and to just make these small changes in the world. It does start with us. It starts with us, being kind. It starts with us helping others. It starts with us sharing what we see. And if what we believe we have is helpful to humanity, then I believe that that's what we should be doing, in whatever small or big way that is. It doesn't matter. But, it's not all about us. And I think something like this helps us to remember that, because as we go deeper into this human experience, as we see this truth of thought, we see that we're all the same. And where we're all the same, that common ground, shared humanity, that shared being is something that, you know, we find really, really peaceful, really enriching, and incredibly loving. And I think I'll stop talking and hand over to Gem.
Oh, I heard so many things in that, and I'm sure lots of other people did. So would you mind just repeating it?
No, I never. I say, by the way, guys, I never, it's like it just comes through, and then I think I'm only going to talk for 20 minutes, and I always talk for 45 minutes, sometimes longer. But yeah, it's, I wish I could. Luckily, these are recorded, so we can listen back to it and remember what we've said.
No, exactly. But what you say is so true. And it took me, 30 years to realize it. Once you see something, you can't unsee it. And to have a belief, whether it's been for a minute, for years, once that dissolves, you become free. One of the main things that I've learned is that there was really never anything wrong. The only thing that was wrong was me thinking that there was something wrong. And it's, yeah, when it's very freeing. Two, it sounds really easy. It sounds like it's just a magic wand, but it's, like Molls said before, I kind of pushed away for probably a couple of years. I'd been in traditional therapy since I was a young kid. I tried everything. I was very, very busy and very sort of driven with work, but I was sort of ramming The Secret and the Law of Attraction, everything down my throat and trying to sort of fake it till you make it. And I was just exhausted. And then I met Molls and she explained this, and I was just like, there's no fucking way that it can be this simple. All these different techniques I've been told, and, you know, think like this, think like that. And in actuality, there's nothing that I can do about my thoughts. The only thing that I can do is allow them and not hold on to them. And when I've still got a long way to go. This is something that I'll be doing forever. This has changed my life so much, which is why we're doing this, because it is absolutely incredible. You've gone from one place to another. And yeah, I feel like I'm rambling, but it is so, just being in the conversation and just hearing certain things, something will stick with you. And yeah, I'm just really grateful that you're all here. We're very fortunate that when people join, they seem to stay for the whole session, and we've got really, really good feedback. And I just think we are in a huge shift in the world, and it has to be a mental shift, and it feels like it's happening. So yeah, I just want to say thank you, Molls. We've got quite a few questions, and we've already been speaking for nearly an hour.
Yeah, okay, darling, go for it. Go.
Okay, well, I think one of the main things that people have sort of spoken and asked about is imposter syndrome. A few people have spoken about it in regards to NFTs, sort of getting their art out there. But there was a question from somebody, and he said, how can I deal with imposter syndrome from moving from Web 2 to Web 3? I asked him to explain a little bit more, and what he said was, sorry, I should have had that. What he said was, so given societal expectations and pressure in an increasingly competitive social and affluent environment, how would one deal with the realization that they are not good enough for their social status?
Okay. So it's quite interesting because a few people said imposter syndrome, and they've said it before when we've asked questions, and we've never really looked at it. But what we have to remember is it's a bit like the seeking thing with the objects. the character is made up. I think I said earlier that actually who we are is made of thought too. So this illusion, this aspect, this self that we think we are is kind of an imposter. It's who we are isn't who we really think we are. It's kind of a made up thing. Who we really are is this deeper aspect that we're pointing to on this call. So imposter syndrome is really, really interesting. It's kind of like the ego is creating the illusion of who you think you are, but telling you that you're not really it. It's like a double bluff. But once you understand more deeply the truth of thought, you begin to see that the whole thing's an illusion anyway. So believing maybe that you're not good enough, but then not believing that you should have all of these things and you're an imposter, can you see that all of that is made up? You shouldn't really be believing one or the other. If we see the deeper truth of the human experience, that thought is coming through and creating our experience, and sometimes that may look like we're really at home with who we are. Sometimes that may look like we think we're the best thing since sliced bread. That may look like that we're an imposter in the next moment. We begin to detach from giving any of it meaning. So the imposter syndrome begins to be just thought, because everything is made of it. And we know that what the ego is up to. So the ego is always creating this illusion of self. And if you think the ego is victim or victor, it's not an even keel. It's always going to be either low or high. The ego is such an interesting thing. It's not the true self. It's the illusion of self. So sometimes it makes us great, and sometimes it says we're not so great. And I think if we can really see how vulnerable that is, how erratic that is, then we can begin to be onto it, because it can't be truth, because it's always changing. So the nature of truth is unchangeable. The nature of the illusion is always change. So the imposter syndrome is just something that comes along. If you really begin to understand this, it's actually showing you who you are not. Because you're not the imposter, but you're not also the thing that you don't want to be an imposter of. It's all transient. It's a bit like, I think, what is it, the Shakespeare quote, all the world's a stage and we are merely players. I'm made up, Gem's made up. Sly's made up. We're all these made up characters. And when we begin to see that, we take the character a bit less seriously. We allow for it to feel like an imposter. We allow for it to make us feel like we're great, but we don't get too caught up in it. We're not so sold on it. It's just it's another really interesting thing about what we experience. Like, yeah, of course we're going to feel like a fake, because ultimately we are one, but that's not a bad thing. It's showing us actually that because it changes, there's something deeper to see here. And that depth, we're not exploring this depth just for fun, although I do really enjoy it. We're exploring this depth because of the peace that we feel, because we come home to something more true about who we are. Because from that space, we're able to deal with life. So, yeah, what is the imposter? Instead of having the imposter syndrome and feeling like you're being a fake, instead of getting that feeling and trying to make yourself better or live up to what it's saying, what it's showing you is to go deeper into it, to challenge it, to see that ultimately there's no truth in whatever it's saying. Is that making sense, Gem?
Yeah, it makes complete sense. And we tend to avoid the things that we want to protect ourselves from, don't we?
Yeah.
that's the sort of fight or flight, protection, hibernation thing. We even had it the other day. We spoke about it last week. I had a bit of a meltdown and I wouldn't answer my phone until you text me 3 times saying, answer your bloody phone. And then we were laughing within 2 minutes. But in that moment, the whole world was ending. But it lasted for a few minutes and then it was fine. But it's fine to have feelings and it's okay. But when you've been taught for a long time, or society drills it into you that it's not okay not to be okay, that's when you hide things, you don't share things. But just speaking to people, sharing anything that you're sort of keeping to yourself, when you're so emotionally involved you can't see the wood for the trees, and just having sort of someone else's point of view or perspective, there's nothing to be ashamed about. Feeling is who we are, isn't it? So all these challenges, in inverted commas, are they lessons? Is it the journey? Is it what we're given? But if we see them as hard obstacles, then that's what they're going to feel like. And that's not a nice, fun, happy journey of life, is it? If it feels like a struggle.
No, and there was a point there that you made about where we're trying to protect ourselves. And it's what's really interesting. That's such a great point, because the imposter syndrome will be around the place where we feel vulnerable, where our ego tells us we're not good enough. So again, that's a really good place to dive in, because all of those areas are all ultimately showing us what isn't true about us, not what is true. But we take it the wrong way. We think that's the call to tell us something about our character or somewhere where we aren't good enough. But ultimately, it's pointing us home. It's showing us, oh yeah, that area, that's not true. That's something you've made up. Go there, because when you go there, when you go to that place, you're going to get so much richness by seeing it's not true. You're going to drop a whole layer of belief, and you're going to come home to something that ultimately feels much more peaceful and it's actually much more true. So I love that you mentioned that. It's such a great point, that protective nature. We don't need to protect. Is that the area you think you need to protect is actually where you need to go, because that's where you're going to get the most change from. I think,
yeah, you definitely taught me that about love and sort of how can you be so strong in one area and then not in another. It's completely illogical to be afraid of one thing and strong about something else. If you see your mind, it's a computer, and we just get distracted and believe bullshit along the way, don't we?
yeah.
A couple of people, well, lots of people actually have asked about I can never say this word, so I say it wrong, procrastination.
Yes.
And lack of motivation, basically. Where is it? But then something else that came in is, how do I know when I'm being lazy or if I just need to rest and relax? So I think that whole bundle's quite an interesting thing, because people beat themselves up about not doing enough, don't they?
Yeah. Yeah, they really do. I think it's an interesting topic, and it's as if motivation is something outside of you that you need to find. Again, nothing's outside of us, everything's within us. So we can get really stuck with that because we think it's something we need to get and we're not getting it, and we beat ourselves up, and we can make it worse, and we become more apathetic and with less motivation, because it's like we're doing something wrong by not feeling motivated. Again, like hitting ourselves with a stick. There is nothing that we are doing wrong, okay? We step away from that with this understanding. If you're feeling unmotivated, it's just a feeling. Now, here's something that can be really interesting. What about you feel unmotivated, but you see it's all made of salt and you just get on with life anyway? You know, it's like, what about not being motivated or believing thinking that says you can't be bothered? What about if you see, oh, well, that's just another thought flying by. I don't need to listen to that. That doesn't need to be true. That can go. So when that goes, when we see that, we begin to just get on with life. It's like having a bad day and staying in bed. Why? Get out of bed, go and just live your day. What is thinking telling you that's so true that you need to stay in bed? Now, if there is the odd day you stay in bed, fine. You know, we all do that occasionally. You know, having a bad day or you don't want to go out, absolutely fine. But to carry that on, we can see there where mental health issues again begin to come in, because we start believing thought. We're unmotivated. We're not good. We're not worthy. We're not making the best of our lives. Believing all that thinking, then if that thinking leads to behaviour, which is staying home, not speaking to anyone, not doing what we think we should be doing, then beating ourselves up even more about that, we can see where depression can start to come in. Okay, so we go even deeper into what this idea of mental health is and what thought is creating. Okay, so what if we just see that everything's coming from thought? What if we understand it on these days where it looks like a bad day or an I can't be bothered day, that we just see thought and we go, well, I'm going to do what I need to do anyway. I may not do it with a spring in my step, but who knows, maybe after an hour, because I'm not taking so much notice of my thinking, maybe a burst of energy will come in. You know, it's challenging thought is really where it's at here. You know, not believing thinking in everything that you bring to the table is going to be the answer. And it's so interesting. It's like a million different problems, but really one problem, believing thought that isn't true. So yes, it's a really good one, but it can be so compelling, and we feel again it says so much about us. It doesn't say anything about us. It's just we're going through a phase where we don't feel motivated. Do what you can on those days. Motivation will come, motivation will go. A bit like happiness. You know, again, I said on the beginning of call, we're not meant to be happy 100% of the time. That's not what's on the table. You know, we're happy sometimes and we're not. We're motivated sometimes and we're not. So I hope that's helpful. Gem?
It's helpful for me, definitely. And I think it will be for lots of other people. There's someone else in the audience actually that asked about being shy. That's one of the challenges that they deal with. They could come up and actually speak if they want to. They're a good friend. So if you want to, come and speak. If not, we can talk about shyness.
Shyness is just, interestingly, it's the ego. You know, the ego can, again, back to what I said earlier, that the ego is like, I'm great or I'm not good enough. You know, ego isn't just a show off. It's also inverted. It's also the person that isn't good enough and wants to hide away. So shyness is just, it's an interesting one. Surprisingly, I don't experience it myself. You'll be shocked to know, Gem. But it's it's just challenging thought. What does shy mean? What is that really? What is that?
I don't know. To me, shyness would be maybe being embarrassed of yourself, or not wanting to show your true self.
Yeah. No. I kind of get it. But if we challenge it, like it's thought, isn't it?
And probably comparing to what they think they should be like. Otherwise, they'd be happy and sort of in line with who they know they should be, rather than trying to hide.
But what's wrong with maybe not wanting to interact all the time, or being the person that stands back? So this is what I'm pointing to. It's like, why does it have to be a wrong experience? You know, we're all going to have very different experiences throughout our lives. So if shyness is one of them, so you experience shyness. When you see through it, when something deeper comes through, then maybe shyness will fall away. But it's everything is thought. Our world is made of thought. Sometimes, you know, I mean, everyone's going to experience different things, as I said, and I don't see that there's that much wrong with feeling shy. I think if, again, we hold things in place by thinking that they're the wrong feeling. It's so interesting that we do that. Instead of seeing it for what it is, which is fleeting thought, we see it as a personality trait, and it sticks around. See, everything was just one thought once until we believed it over and over and over again, and then it becomes a behaviour or a belief. But ultimately it comes back to thought, and it will unravel. And so there's things about me that over the last 10 years that look true that aren't true. They've fallen away. I used to think I was so sensitive, and I don't think I'm that sensitive anymore. You know, I can have moments, but it's nowhere near as bad as it used to be. So this sensitive person was made up. So the shy person is made up. But we don't want to make it wrong to be shy or wrong to be sensitive. We want to see it as it is. But when we understand that it's thought, it has more potential to fall away. I think that's what we're looking at here. But it's an interesting one. You know, all the things that we experience are actually interesting because they all lead us back to thought. And challenging thought brings us home to something deeper. So I'm going to unmute you because you have requested. Hi, Cecile. Are you there?
Hey, Molls. Hey, Jim.
Hi, darling. How are you?
Good. How are you guys?
Good. Nice to hear your voice.
Oh, always good to hear yours as well. So we were talking about shyness. I had a couple thoughts. Whenever you were going on earlier, I had so much that I was thinking about. But you were talking about shyness, and I was somebody that was very shy growing up. But as you were saying, it is a lot have to do with thought, and I think for me, it was those you're presented with situations and you have a response, and a lot of times you get into like a habitual response of however that makes you feel, you know. And for me, I can't speak for anybody, but for me it was again, it's thought. You're building that story around the social situation or whatever it may be. A lot of times it's something new that you don't necessarily know how to deal with it. And so you're presented with this, a habitual response that's more comfortable. You know, you're used to that. That's how it was for me. I can't speak for anybody, but I also just wanted to plug real quick, if anybody is enjoying what they're hearing this evening today, you should go check out the Unminding Twitter page at unminding_. That's all I had to say.
Thank you. Thank you, Cecile. Yeah, again, there's areas of our personality and of our character that we know we used to have that we don't have anymore. So that is just evidence of the potential for change that we all have. And I think that's really important to understand, that we always have that potential to see things differently, to see life differently, to have a different experience of being alive. And that's the understanding. That's what we have here, because you're only ever living in a thought created experience, and thought always changes. Okay? That's really important to see. You are only ever living in a thought-created experience, and thought always changes. So everything has the potential to change. So no matter how bad it is, no matter how dark life may seem, there's always the potential for new thought and change and a better life, because it's always coming from us. Okay? So it's an internal. It's your reality is created internally, not externally. And freedom is not believing you're thinking around that. So you're not believing the thoughts that you have about the outside world, or your thoughts about yourself, your thoughts about your past. We begin to see that thought is always changing. Okay? We're only ever up against ourselves. And that makes life so much easier, because the moment that we see it's thought, we're back in the room. Okay? The 3 principles are so helpful, and that they life is created via these energies, whether you understand them or you know about them or not. So to explore them leads to a richer experience, because we're going deeper into who we really are and what life really is. And we get less caught with the outside world. So we have less drama, less problems, more ease, more happiness. We're not teaching this just because it's a nice idea. We're teaching this because it's the truth, and because it will lead to a better life. It will lead to an easier life. Now, life will still be full of challenges. We will still have the appearance of challenging situations, but our ability to deal with them and to even thrive within them instead of coping, as I said earlier, will be evident. We will see that more clearly. Okay? So I'm going to pass back to Gems.
Yeah, everything you say is very true, and it's just a relief to be free from thought. When you believe something for so long, and then you find out actually it's not true, it's pretty wild and life-changing. Hence why we have to do this, to tell you, so you tell other people, because it's very, very important. If any of you have heard anything that's really stuck with you, then please share with anyone, whether it's on Twitter or friends or family, because I think a lot of people feel isolated, and it's really important to know that there is a way to be happy, and it's not that hard. It's not as hard as it's been made out to be. There's lots of profit to be made from sick, unhealthy, unhappy people. So we don't do that anymore. But yeah, I think we've covered loads of brilliant things today.
I do. There was a point that you said that it's like happiness isn't elusive, because happiness is who you are. It's within you. Okay. So it's not something you have to find. It's just something as you will see more deeply as more of your personal thought falls away. So again, it's really simple. It sounds too good to be true. I know if you on the first hearing, but it is fundamental truth of who we are. And it literally is another thing that can be hard to understand is there's nothing to do. We're not going to send you off with exercises or affirmations. This is just an exploration. You will listen to us or someone else that's teaching the 3 principles. You may hire a coach like me or someone else that will teach you it, a 3 principles teacher. You may read books, you may watch YouTubes on it, but just if you've heard something, even a little thing that sparks your interest, I urge you to stay in the conversation, because from there, that little seed, you have no idea what will bloom, and you have no idea when it will bloom. But for those of us that have seen it, we know that there's those moments of insight where life really does get better and does change, and what you see is permanent, okay? So this isn't something that you'll just see it and it will just be fleeting. It's something that fundamentally changes how you see yourself in the world and humanity. So, do stick with it. Do keep coming back. Do ask questions. Do join the Telegram group. And that's what we're here for. We're here to share this and that ripple effect, and really would love, obviously, as Jem said, to share with other people, but tweet if you can about unminding and coming on these spaces, because again, the bigger the reach, the more change for the world, and that's ultimately what we're here for. We change one person at a time, but the ripple effect of that, if that changes another person, the more people we reach, the better life gets. Gems.
Absolutely. And I was going to say we wouldn't be here without you guys, but we probably would just be sort of chatting and hoping someone would hear, because I think once you hear something, it kind of burns a fire in you that you want to share it with other people. Because if you've ever felt shit and you know what that feels like, to turn it around and to feel good is something that you really, you want to, like, not shout from the rooftops, but you definitely want people to know that there is an easier, nicer way of life. So just, thank you all for being here. We're here every Thursday. We've got our Telegram group, which is t.me/unminding. We are starting a proper podcast soon, and we're building our website. So everything's growing. This will always be free for everybody. It's a come as you are party. We understand that obviously a lot of us are in crypto and finance, and it can be very stressful. So this is always going to be available for everybody. Mine and Molls DMs are always open. I've linked a Medium article up the top, which explains a bit more about what we're doing, what our plans are. There's some books up there that Molls has put up that have really changed some of the lives of some of the people in the Telegram group. So it's worth having a look at them. If any of you want to donate and help our project and with what we're moving forward with, then all the donation addresses are on there as well. But just reach out to us. Any questions, any suggestions? As I said, we're building and we're growing. So we know there's lots of clever, interesting people in this space. So if you have any ideas, we'd love to hear them. Any support is going to be great to help push this forward, to help everybody else. And just thank you for being here. And I don't like saying goodbye on a Thursday, but so thank you for being here, and we'll see you next week.
I'm just going to read something quickly and then we'll go. So thank you, everybody. Thank you, Gems, for being an amazing co-host. Thank you for everybody that showed up and that asked questions. And all the links are there. And obviously we are a community project. So anybody that would like to help us in any way, that's tweeting, we've had a theme tune or donations, that would be wonderful. And we're building the website right now, so it should be out in a couple of weeks. But I'm just going to leave you with something from a guy called Jeff Foster, who's a lovely teacher. Perhaps our dreams are there to be broken, and our plans are there to crumble. Our tomorrows are there to dissolve into todays, and perhaps all of this is a giant invitation to wake up from the dream of separation, to awaken from the mirage of control and embrace wholeheartedly what is present. Perhaps it is all a call to compassion, to a deep embrace of this universe in all its bliss and pain, its bittersweet glory. Perhaps we were never really in control of our lives, and perhaps we are constantly invited to remember this, since we constantly forget it. Perhaps suffering is not the enemy at all, and at its core, there is a first-hand, real-time lesson we must all learn, if we are to be truly human and truly divine. Perhaps breakdown always contains breakthrough. Perhaps suffering is simply a rite of passage, not a test or a punishment, nor a signpost to something in the future or past, but a direct pointer to the mystery of existence itself, here and now. Perhaps life cannot go wrong at all. Thank you, everybody.